A dead slave's words kept an American pilot alive through 7 years of torture. The slave had been dead for 18 centuries. This is the strangest survival story of the Vietnam War. September 9th, 1965. A Navy jet is on fire over North Vietnam, and in the seconds before he ejects, the pilot whispers something strange to himself. I'm leaving the world of technology and entering the world of Epictetus. He had about 30 seconds beneath the parachute. Men ran into the road as bullets tore through the canopy. His A-4 Skyhawk had been moving at roughly 500 knots. Its controls shot away at treetop height. Now the machinery was gone. What would remain when the uniform was stripped away? Epictetus was a Roman slave. When his master twisted his leg until it snapped, the story goes he didn't scream. He simply said, "I told you it would break." He walked crippled for the rest of his life. And on that ruined leg, he taught one idea: you control almost nothing that happens to you, only what you do next. He never wrote a word. A student scribbled his lessons into a pocket handbook. Enchiridion means something kept ready at hand. It divides life into 2 columns, what depends on you and what does not. Your body, reputation, possessions, and other people's decisions can be taken. Your judgments, aims, and choices are yours. Could anyone live that distinction when freedom disappeared? Born around the year 50 in Hierapolis, in what is now Turkey, Epictetus was enslaved in Rome and studied under the Stoic Musonius Rufus. After gaining freedom, he eventually established a school at Nicopolis in Greece. Arrian preserved the classroom voice that survives today: impatient, humorous, and forever asking why you surrender your peace to something you never controlled. Philosopher. A long places freedom at the center of this teaching, but not freedom from pain or authority. Georgetown philosopher Nancy Sherman, who studied Stoicism in military life and interviewed Stockdale, stresses that it is not numbness. It demands judgment and action. Does that sound passive to you? 1800 years later, a college professor handed that handbook to a pilot named James Stockdale. The professor was Philip Rhinelander at Stanford. In 1962, Stockdale was 38 and had spent 20 years in the Navy. He was studying international relations for a Pentagon assignment, but the material left him cold. One morning, he wandered into philosophy, where Rhinelander mistook him for a professor and invited him into a private tutorial. They moved from Job to Socrates, Aristotle, and Dostoevsky. At their final meeting, Rhinelander pulled the Enchiridion from a high shelf. Stockdale later read every surviving work of Epictetus twice. The books stayed near his bunk aboard aircraft carriers. Would you have guessed that a handbook was becoming survival equipment? 3 years later, he commanded an air wing from the USS Oriskany. As his jet fell, he estimated at least 5 years below. That was reconnaissance, not pessimism. He refused to build his sanity around a date he did not control. The parachute drops him into a village street. A mob shatters his leg, the same injury as the slave. It never heals straight. Then comes the prison they called the Hanoi Hilton. 7.5 years a prisoner, 4 of them in solitary, 2 in leg irons, tortured 15 times. After a crude operation and months on crutches, the leg healed crooked. At 42, underweight, unwashed, bearded, and dragging that leg, he became the clandestine leader of about 50 Americans. The number would grow beyond 400. His captors never recognized his command. Through taps, whispers, notes hidden near sinks, and signals bent into rusty wire, the prisoners built a clandestine society with rules, warnings, and heroes. How do you command men you cannot see? You begin by admitting that everyone can break. The interrogators used ropes to wrench bodies into submission, forced prisoners to record confessions, and then left them alone to soak in shame. New arrivals often whispered through the wall that they had betrayed their country. The answer came back. Everyone here has broken. Tell me your name. That reply returned a man to the group before guilt could isolate him again. Stockdale rejected orders demanding impossible resistance until death. Instead, he designed limits men could remember under torture. His acronym was Back Us. Do not bow in public, stay off the air, admit no crimes, and never kiss them goodbye by taking a private release. US meant unity over self. Could you obey a rule that might send you back to the ropes? The purpose was to preserve one deliberate choice inside pain. A prisoner needed to know what he resisted for, where he could bend, and how to return after failing. That was Epictetus made practical, not invulnerability, but a path back. The prison tested time. Fellow prisoner Howie Rutledge later surveyed men who endured torture and isolation. Those held alone for less than 2 years usually named torture as worse. Those isolated longer said isolation did more lasting damage. What happens when the human voice becomes contraband? A few taps restored it. Men transmitted names, news, jokes, and orders, one letter at a time. The walls meant to separate them became the instrument that joined them. Could you have held on? Here is the strange part. Stockdale said the Optimists died first. The men who whispered, "Home by Christmas," and then broke, Christmas after Christmas. He survived on the slave's rule instead. Accept what you cannot control. Defend the one thing you can. They chained his leg. They never touched his mind. That is not an attack on hope. Psychologists Michael Shire and Charles Carver generally link optimism with persistence and better psychological and physical outcomes. Hope can keep you moving. The danger begins when it demands a deadline reality never promised. Years later, researcher and author Jim Collins asked Stockdale, who had failed to survive captivity. His answer created what Collins called the Stockdale Paradox. Never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end with the discipline to confront the brutal facts in front of you. One belief concerns your ultimate meaning, the other concerns today's evidence. Can you hold both without letting either erase the other? Stockdale did not promise himself Christmas. He faced the cell, the irons, and the possibility of years. Then he chose the next available duty. That might mean tapping encouragement through a wall, controlling his expression during interrogation, or refusing a propaganda performance. Realistic hope gave him work. Fantasy offered only a date. In 1969, that work reached its darkest point. Guards caught him with a note that could expose other prisoners and lead interrogators toward them. Stockdale expected another torture purge. Alone in the main interrogation room, with funeral music for Ho Chi Minh drifting through the prison, he broke a window and used the glass on his wrists rather than risk giving up his men. A patrol found him unconscious and bleeding. Doctors revived him. The next morning, his arms were bandaged, his leg irons were removed, and the prison commissar brought him sweet tea. According to Stockdale's account, the systematic prison torture he had known ended for the Americans that night. What kind of control remains when the only available decision is that terrible? His Medal of Honor citation described a near-mortal wound accepted to show he would die rather than capitulate. But suffering alone proves nothing. The question is what value your choice protects. Stockdale protected a community. His version of Stoicism was not a lone man pretending not to feel. It was a leader acknowledging fragility, forgiving men after they broke, and building rules that made solidarity possible. Nancy Sherman's research on the Stoic warrior draws the same distinction. Endurance without humanity can become hardness, while disciplined emotion can serve duty and fellowship. Which version would you want leading you? This also explains why the ruined legs matter. Epictetus taught that lameness obstructs a leg, not the faculty of choice. Stockdale remembered that idea after the mob broke his own leg. The injury remained external. Leadership did not. He walked out in 1973 on that ruined leg and received the Medal of Honor. He was released during Operation Homecoming in February 1973. President Gerald Ford presented the medal in 1976. Stockdale later led the Naval War College and, in 1992, became Ross Perot's running mate. Television audiences saw the awkward debate. Far fewer knew what he had survived. The public remembered a debate. His fellow prisoners remembered the taps and a limping commander who refused to bargain for himself. History keeps the visible moment and loses the discipline behind it. Have you ever judged someone by the one scene television preserved? Epictetus would have recognized that problem. Reputation belongs in the column you do not control. Your conduct belongs in the other. You can spend your life trying to command the first, or you can work on the second and let the record fall where it may. Your version may be illness, a layoff, a death, or a body that no longer obeys. The loss is real. Stoicism does not call it good. It asks, now that this happened, which part is still yours? Start there. Name the facts without bargaining. Refuse the imaginary deadline. Choose one action that serves your character or another person. Then repeat it when the next Christmas passes and the door still has not opened. So the next time life takes something you can't get back, remember what a crippled slave taught a broken pilot.